Hi, everyone. I'm Bonita from rural Kansas, and I am early retired. I retired early at almost 58 years old in October of 2023. I am now 60 years old. I am riding it out until Social Security kicks in, and I love frugal living. I share tips and tricks on this channel, and it has afforded me the opportunity and choices to have the freedom that I wanted at an earlier age. I hope you enjoy this video. For many people, the idea of frugal living is something that they would just bypass. They would say, I don't want to live like that. I don't want to cut corners. I don't want to do without. But I'm here to tell you today that frugal living is not that. Frugal living is what you make it. It is not spending money in areas that don't affect your day-to-day life, that don't make your life worse and make your life smaller. It is spending it in ways that you want to spend it, that makes your life fuller and more enjoyable. I love frugal living because I can save in those small ways that don't matter so that I can spend in big ways that do matter. Several of you know I just had a daughter get married on June 6th, and I paid for her wedding. She's my youngest of three daughters. I paid for the other two to get married as well. We did frugal weddings. Now, I had one person comment that the amount wasn't very frugal in their opinion, and that's okay. But venues and catering and the photographer, that was the biggest part of my expenditure. And when I reviewed my expenses, I had given you an incorrect amount. I thought I had spent around $8,000, but I had actually wrote down an amount twice. And the amount ended up being $7,248.59. Now, for some people, that may sound like a lot if you're going to go to the justice of the peace, or maybe you're just going to have a small church wedding with no catering, no dance, no anything after that. Then I'm sure you could cut corners more. This was for 100 people, and it was important to me. So yes, I felt that was frugal because I saved for this reason. I cut in other small ways so that I could afford to do that purchase for her wedding. And it meant a lot to me, and it meant a lot to her and to her new husband. So however you choose to be frugal, that is okay because that is your life. That is the things that are important to you. A lot of you don't like to travel, and that's okay. Frugal living for me means setting aside money to travel as well. And I travel frugally, I live frugally. The wedding was done as frugal as possible. And doing those things allows me to have the money for the things that I want to do. And that's why I love frugal living so much, because I am essentially not working. I do have a YouTube channel. It brings in about $200 a month. That's not much for 3 videos a week. And I also do some things on the side, like I do some mystery shopping once in a while. That brings in maybe between $20 to $100 a month, depending on how many I am up to doing. And I just do those little things that add to what I am affording to do. And then I make choices with that limited income. Now, I live rurally. I live in Kansas, as the intro said. I have a 2-story old farmhouse built in 1907. I figured up the other day, and I know I've put more than $50,000 in this old farmhouse to make it livable, but also, that $50,000 did not include any central heat and air. We don't have that. We don't use that. We have a propane stove. We have window units. We don't have an ice maker. We don't have a dishwasher. We don't have some of the modern things out here, but that's okay because they grew up like that. And I am used to living like that. Now, for some people, they would say, I couldn't live like that. I couldn't live without air conditioning. I couldn't live without my ice maker, or I couldn't live without my dishwasher. But for me, when I never have had those things, it doesn't affect me one way or another. So those frugal things are okay for my life and my daily life, and they don't bother me to go without something that I've never had. So you have to choose in your own life the things that matter to you and the things that you don't mind saving on. Our electric bill runs around $72 a month. That makes this house super affordable. My house is assessed by the county at about $17,000. That makes my property taxes very affordable. I live in an area where you can burn trash and recycle. That saves me money. I also have my own water well. That saves me money. I have liability insurance only on my car because it's paid for. That saves me money. So I look at all these little things on how I can save in little ways to make my small income stretch to cover everything and still be able to have extra to save. So there are lots of ways in my life that I save, and I bet there's lots of ways in your life that you save too. I don't use my dryer. I have indoor drying racks if it rains, which it's been raining a lot lately. In fact, we had hail 3 times in 1 week. The ground is super spongy. It's super humid right now. And a few years ago, I bought a dehumidifier, and that has been worth its weight in gold. That dehumidifier will drop the temperature in this house like 10 degrees just by pulling the humidity out. I bought it refurbished off of Amazon for like $160. And we feel like it's almost like a little air conditioner because when we run it, it makes that big of a difference. And then when I dry clothes, I just point the heat that comes out of that dehumidifier on the clothing, on the drying rack inside, and it dries my clothes. So it works like 2 different ways. And when it is nice outside, I hang my clothes. Or if my back's bothering me too much, I use the indoor drying rack. So I use different options to be able to save money so that my daily life has as little expense as possible so I can spend it on the things that I want. Now, when I decided that I wanted to retire early, I had debt, and I made sure that that debt was paid off first. I focused totally on paying off that debt. I figured out how much interest I was paying on all of the debt I had every single month, and I was paying over $600 in interest a month. And I thought, man, if I can get this paid off, it's like giving myself a $600 raise. So being debt free gives you so many options, so many choices. And we can't see that sometimes when we are making regular payments on things. We can't see all of that interest that is being taken off of the top. And then we're just making tiny little advances, sometimes not even advances on the actual debt principal. So getting that paid off was essential to me being able to live and enjoy a low income life and still have money for other things. Throughout this 2.5 years that I have been early retired and living on a very low monthly income, I have continued to look for more ways to save. I shut off my home phone. I started a garden. I have a winter garden inside the house. I started chopping and preparing items for the freezer rather than letting them spoil in my house. And my goal was to have no waste. I started back stocking things when they were on sale and on clearance so that I wouldn't ever have to pay full price. And I cook at home 99.9% of the time. And that's okay because I grew up again with home cooking, and that was very, very normal. We didn't go out to eat when I grew up. We didn't have a restaurant nearby. We didn't have soda in the house. We didn't have a lot of things that are just commonplace today. So me going out to eat, It's not a hard adjustment when you haven't made that part of your daily life, and it saves you a lot of money. So then when you do travel like we do, we can afford to eat out, and it becomes a luxury and something special that we can do as a couple. So for me, working longer to increase my retirement savings was not a good enough reason to give up some of the best years of my life that were yet to come. I have a lot of back issues, which was making it very difficult for me to work. I was in a lot of pain, and being home, I can manage my symptoms better because I am not held to deadlines and travel and all of the things that I had to do at my job, including carrying a briefcase, pulling a computer. All of those things were very difficult for me. And when I'm at home, I can take breaks. When my back tells me I need to take a break, I can do things that day. If I feel like I can do them, I can stop when I feel like I can't do them. And I don't have all of that pressure to try to keep going because I'm on the clock. So making this choice for me actually gave me the wealth of building my health. It gave me lots of options to be able to save money so that I didn't have to keep doing those things. Now it's a luxury for me to be able to take time to read a book. It's a luxury for me to watch something grow and pick it from my garden. It's a luxury for me to sit outside in a lawn chair and just enjoy my yard. When so many years I left at dark and came home at dark. I didn't do anything here except eat, bathe, and sleep and go again. And so I feel like quitting my job and living frugally helped build my wealth. I spent a lot of money going to work. I spent a lot of money on clothes, on hair color. I spent a lot of money on grabbing things at the takeout because I didn't feel like I was up to cooking that night. I did a lot of spending out of stress, out of pain, out of being rushed, and out of just trying to keep going. Now, those things can be eliminated from my day-to-day life that were just extra costs to my daily income, just like that interest was every month. So if you cut out some of those things, it gives you a lot more money to spend. You are down to the basics of what it really costs you to live. If I take my electricity and I take my car insurance and I take the things I have to live, that amount is so much smaller than I thought it was going to be when I was working. Because when I was working, there was so much more going out of my account on a day-to-day basis, on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, on an annual basis. And if I just looked at that, I thought, I can't afford to quit. But when I started actually chunking out some of those extras, wow, I could afford to quit. I could afford to live. Why hadn't I done this sooner? I'm totally willing to cut out some of those extras if it means I can stay home and I can rest and I can enjoy my life and I can enjoy this last chapter. I was totally willing to do that. So I felt like being frugal actually helped me see the wealth that I had, and it helped me build my savings by cutting out all of those extras. And then I felt like I was in a better position to be able to put in my notice. I think being realistic about what I was spending was really key to me being able to afford to quit and live more frugally than ever. I just don't think I realized how much I was spending and how much was going out of my checking account. It was there. I was an empty nester. I didn't really think about it. I didn't really think about quitting. I just was going about the flow like every other person does when they're working full time and getting a paycheck regularly. And then when I started thinking, how will I make it? I thought, you know what, Bonita, you've made it this far. You are this old. You've always figured it out. you'll figure this out too. Why are you thinking that you won't? And just having that little conversation with myself and taking an honest, realistic look at what I was spending, that gave me the information I needed to practice living on that retirement budget and see if I was going to be able to make it. And doing that helped me put more money in my savings because I was practicing living on this amount and I had all this extra because now I was debt free. Now I wasn't spending just helter skelter and I was having money left over. And I thought, you know what? You can do this. You could have done this a long time ago. And I just started building my wealth through frugal living. And that's what I've continued to do for over 940 days since I quit. I hope you've enjoyed this video and maybe it's given you some things to think about in your own spending patterns and whether or not some of those spending patterns are keeping you from the freedom and the choices that you really desire. Thank you for listening today, and I hope you'll join me in another video. We've been having some really good storms lately in Kansas. It's hailing again right now. You can see it there on the ground. It's about marble size. And you can hear it in the background.